But without any further ado, this is from the music department. We have a large variety of presenters here to talk about or present the music of women composers.
And hello, I'm Barbara Witham-McCarger, Chair of the Music Department, and this is a really interesting event that we put together just about every year, not quite every, but this year kind of marks a new moment. We have several people who have not participated in the Women's Composers lecture recital before, so I'm just very excited to have as our second performer an adjunct faculty, just new this year, Barbara Corbato. And we have a group of students joining me in the Oliveros piece at the end of the program. So with no further comments from me, let me introduce the first performer presenter, Mary Hurd, visiting assistant professor of music.
Thank you, everyone. The composer I'll be presenting and playing a piece by is Amy Beach. Amy Beach is a well-known name to our women's music, but I'll tell you just a few little things about her life. She was born, her maiden name was Chaney. Amy Chaney was her name when she was born in 1867. By the age of 4, she was composing little piano pieces and playing music by ear. Her mother, who was also a performing pianist, encouraged little Amy and gave her piano lessons 3 times a week. So if you think 1 time a week is a lot for piano lessons, imagine 3 times a week. And then your teacher is there to hear you practice every day. So that actually is a very effective way of learning. Amy's first public appearance was in a church concert at the age of 7. Amy's family moved to Boston from New Hampshire a few years later, and then Amy was able to take piano lessons and a few harmony lessons in the city of Boston. But it's interesting to note that this was the only time that she studied harmony in her life, was in these early years. When she was 16, she debuted as a pianist with the Boston Orchestra. When she was 18, she married the physician Dr. Henry Harris Aubrey Beach, who was slightly older than her own father, actually. She was slightly older than her father, so he was quite a bit older than her. And after she got married, she stopped performing altogether. She composed. She threw herself into her composing, and that might be why we have so many pieces by her, because she felt constrained in her performing, but yet still wanted to do something with music. During this time, she wrote something that she is often quoted as saying, "Music means my inner soul." So during this period of time when she was married, when she was focusing on composition, she actually wrote most of her major pieces at that time. She wrote a mass and a scene and aria for alto and orchestra, and she wrote also some little pieces. The piece that I'm going to play is from one of her set of piano pieces. When Fireflies was actually written about 1890, when she was only about 20, so it was shortly after she got married. She was in her early 20s. And so it's actually one of her earlier works, and you don't hear in this piece that I'm playing a lot of advanced harmonic language like you hear in her later pieces. Her later pieces were exploring later romantic harmonies and newer sounds. But this piece I think you'll find very understandable and very early romantic sounding. Amy lived to be, let me back up. In 1910, her husband died, and her husband she was only 43 when her husband died. So she then went on for 30-some more years to throw herself into performing again. So for 34 years after her husband died, she performed and she composed. And it was during that time that she moved to America, and she was, her music was becoming very popular in America, and there was a type of club that was being formed. They had little Amy Beach clubs in the U.S. that celebrated her music and studied her music. I think that's all. Oh, I know. I wanted to say one more thing about the piece that I'm playing is actually called Fireflies. She named it Fireflies, but yet the piece is based on a poem. A lot of her little piano pieces and even vocal pieces, obviously with text, are based on poems. So she took a lot of encouragement and ideas from the poems of the day, and this was a poem that I've put in the program that the piece was was based on. It's interesting, I think, that the poem is a poem about a butterfly. You can see the alliteration along the left-hand column, but yet she chose to name the piece Fireflies. So see what you think as you listen to it. See if you think it sounds like a butterfly or if it sounds like a firefly. Anyway, think of spring when you listen.
I think I heard the butterfly and the firefly zooming around together in harmony somehow. Thank you, Mary. Our next performer is a new adjunct to the music department, Barbara Corbato, and Barbara is a violist in the Grand Rapids Symphony. And I'm so glad that she accepted the invitation to perform on this program. So we're going to set the stage, and then she'll have a few words to say about the wonderful Rebecca Clark.
Why don't I just start talking while they're setting? The piece I'm going to play is a Passacaglia on an Old English tune by Rebecca Clark. Rebecca Clark is really very well known amongst viola players. She wrote some really just very beautiful viola music. She's not as well known amongst other instrumentalists, but violists we really enjoy her music. Rebecca Clark was born in London in 1886. She began her instrumental studies on the violin, but switched to viola, and then attended the Royal Academy of Music and Royal College of Music, where she studied with Lionel Tertis, who was one of the most prominent viola soloists of the time. She also studied composition while she was there. And then after she finished with her schooling, she became one of the first professional female professional orchestral musicians when she joined the Queen's Hall Orchestra in 1912. In 1918 to 1923, Clark wrote her most notable works, a viola sonata and a piano trio and a rhapsody for cello and piano. All three of these were received honors in several composition competitions. After this period, Clark focused primarily on performing for a time. Between 1939 and 1942, she wrote several shorter pieces for viola and piano, one of which is the Passacaglia that I'm going to play for you, and also some choral works. When World War II broke out, she was in the United States and was unable to get a visa to get back to England. So she ended up staying in the United States. She had two brothers who lived over here, and so she stayed with them for a while, but then eventually, just to try and find some work and to be independent, she became a nanny in New York City. So she did that for a time, and then she ran into an old school friend on the streets of New York, a pianist named James Friskin, and they rekindled an old romance, and they married in 1944. After this time, she really stopped composing except for just a few vocal compositions. So that really wrapped up both her performing and composing life. She died in 1979 in New York City. The Passacaglia that I'm going to play today was composed around 1940. It's based on a theme by Thomas Tallis. Performers can tell that she was a violist because it really showcases the richness and fullness of the instrument. So we hope you'll enjoy this performance.
Wow. I could just sit and listen to these performers all day. But we have to get on with the program because I bet we all have classes coming up in another bit. Thank you so much. Our next performance is coming from a student who is finishing her credential work for her Bachelor of Music Education degree here at Aquinas, Miss Camry Muir. She hopes to be student teaching in the fall semester. But this semester, we're treated to a recital, hopefully, that will get approved today at her hearing this afternoon. And she's chosen one of the pieces from her recital to present with Bill Marfink today. So Camry's got some words about Cécile Chaminade.
Like Barbara said, I'm going to talk about Cécile Chaminade, a French composer from the Romantic period. She, like Amy Beach, after hearing Mary talk about Amy, she's very similar. She also received piano lessons from her mother when she was a young girl, and her family was very musical, and they were friends with Georges Bizet, who heard her play when she was 8 years old and thought that he recognized her talent and thought she was very talented. And her father refused to let her attend Paris Conservatory, even though she was really talented for her age and ready to go because she was a woman, or she was a young girl. But their friend Georges Bizet convinced her father to allow her to get private lessons from some of the professors at the conservatory. So she studied piano, composition, and music theory with those professors privately. At the age of 18, she gave her first piano recital, and in her early 20s, she started giving multiple recitals of her own compositions. So throughout the course of her life, she produced over 400 works, including a comic opera, a ballet, a choral symphony, chamber and orchestral music, a flute concerto, and about 100 songs. But she was most known for her lyric piano pieces. I thought this was interesting that she was the first female composer to ever be admitted to the Legion of Honor. So that's a big deal. Also, like Amy Beach, she toured, and they were starting, I guess it was a popular movement, these clubs for different female, is it female composers or just female role models maybe. But they had Chaminade clubs in America and in Europe, and she toured and would perform at these clubs. Her music was mostly performed in small venues, they called salons, and she gave recitals in houses and in these clubs, and because most of her songs were just set for piano and voice or a lot of smaller ensembles. She was married once for a very short period of time to a music publisher, and then her husband passed away early on in her lifetime, and her niece wrote a biography about her, and she said that she thought her aunt didn't want to remarry again because she didn't want to be subject to male authority, and she wanted to preserve her professional independence. So it sounds like that was her choice. So after World War II, her music started fading away because just the harshness of the war made her music more unrelatable to what they were going through. It just reminded them of a different time. And so today it's starting to come back to the surface as there's a growing appreciation for female composers, and I'm glad because I will get to sing one of her pieces, and it's beautiful. So it's called Fleur Jetée. Ma feuille au gré
Thank you, Camry and Bill. How wonderful. And I think Cecile did a lot of piano and flute music. So if we had a flautist on the program, maybe they would do a flute piece, but we didn't. We go on now to the fourth performance on the program and the final performance. And my wonderful colleague, now Emerita Associate Professor of Music, Sister Catherine Williams, will share some words about Pauline Oliveros. And sister, if you'll wait a second, we're going to set our chairs up, okay?
We've been doing these women composers for many years now, right? And almost every single woman that we talk about has that same experience of a husband or a father or the whole atmosphere of life didn't allow them to really pursue their compositions. Are you ready? Okay. I was introduced to the composer Pauline Oliveros by Rupert Kettle, our percussion teacher from 1972 until almost his death in 2005. Rupert's percussion group performed every semester, and if you found yourself at one of those performances, you would never miss another, because he was innovative and could draw out of his students all of the possible talent that was there. One semester I asked, "So Rupert, what about female composers?" The next day I received the book, Software for People, Collected Writings 1963 to 80 by Pauline Oliveros. I don't know if before I met Rupert he was using some of her things, and he very well might have, because they were kindred spirits. Pauline was born in Houston, Texas in 1932. She was taught by her mother and grandmother, who were both music teachers. At age 19, she moved to San Francisco, where she got her BA in music composition at San Francisco State College. She was a self-employed composer-performer from 1952 to 66, teaching accordion, her major instrument. She did a lot with that accordion throughout her lifetime, changing it to pure sound eventually instead of tempered sound. In the 1950s, she was one of a circle of composers, artists, poets, exploring sound, forging new ground in listening to the environment and incorporating all that is heard into musical performance. Pauline is the founder of Deep Listening Institute. She describes it as a way of listening in every possible way to everything possible to hear, no matter what you are doing. Such intense listening includes the sounds of daily life. You hear them around you if you listen. Of nature, of one's own thoughts, as well as musical sounds. Deep listening is my life practice, she says. In her 60-plus adult years, Pauline has composed for soloists and ensembles in music, dance, theater, and inter-art companies. She has been artist and composer in residence at many colleges, has received numerous honors and awards from many colleges and international festivals, the latest being the John Cage Award from the Foundation of Contemporary Arts in New York City in March of 2012. To date, Pauline is Distinguished Research Professor of Music at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in Troy, New York, where she lives presently, and Darius Meode, Artist in Residence at Mills College in Oakland, California, where she taught in her early years and now again. The sonic meditations 1 to 15 were composed in the early 70s during her tenure at the University of California, San Diego. She had a Guggenheim Fellowship and was working with an ensemble, the Meditation Project, and the Project for Music Experiment. Her life has been experimental music. And so from her book, the piece Teach Yourself to Fly is the first meditation in which these women are going to do. This is what... Oh, I'm sorry, Ben. I didn't see you there. I'm very sorry, Ben. If you weren't at Ben's recital on Saturday night, you missed a wonderful concert. He did his graduation recital. So now he's learning to breathe. So she gives very strict commentary on how to do these pieces, and this is what it says about Teach Yourself to Fly. Any number of persons sit in a circle facing the center. Begin by simply observing your own breathing. Always be an observer. Gradually allow your breathing to become audible. Then gradually introduce your voice. Allow your vocal cords to vibrate in any mode which occurs naturally. Allow the intensity of the vibrations to increase very slowly. Continue as long as possible, naturally, and until all others are quiet, always observing your own breath cycle.
I own the whole book of sonic meditations, and I'm willing to loan it out. Get some friends together. It's just wonderful. And also, as Sister might have said, you can go online and actually see excerpts of Pauline speaking with a group about observing, listening, and it starts with ourselves, I think, maybe is the point of this exercise in meditation. Thank you so much for being here and sharing this time with us. Are we good with announcements? Anything else? Okay. Well, there are a lot of activities coming up in the music department, and we have a few of the most current listed on the back of the program. Please grab one of those from the tables before you leave. Thank you.